Yeah, I think that first of all, I do believe that yes, maybe it's really hot in our country, and therefore a lot of people might use this sort of excuse, right? Like to dress so way down. But think of it this way, right? You're going to uni. This is a place where you're getting your education. There needs to be a sense of respect, how you dress to that establishment, right? And I always tell my clients, right, it is not an either or situation. It's not like you if you want to be professional, then you have to forego comfort. Both can coexist, right? Like, so if it's really about the heat, there's a lot of materials right now that are linen. Yes. It's very breathable. Correct. Right? Yeah. And some people tell me like, I don't like to wear heels or like, covered shoes when I go to school because it's uncomfortable.
Welcome to Work Around Podcast. I am Fong. Now, for the past 9 episodes of Season 2, we have covered personality interviews to learn about their career journeys. We also touch about the HR technical topics and also other alternative career options as well. To tie it all together, in these final episodes of Season 2, I thought it's good that for us to focus on ourselves, which is we are talking about our own presence in the workplace and professional world. My guest will go through with you on how, even without a formal leadership title, you can cultivate a confident and inspiring presence that benefit you and the people around you. So, welcome Ranukka Singham, our employee branding strategist.
Thank you for having me, Mifo. My name is Ranukka. I've been doing this for 7 years, and I help people brand themselves so that they can be the better version of themselves. And the tagline of my company is matching substance with perception, which I truly believe in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about myself.
So this is an impactful presence introductions. Now, maybe a bit of background here, Ranukka. What actually inspired me to do this topic is because the few articles I read recently. One is actually why successful people always wear the same outfit every day.
Okay.
Another one is a psychology of fashion, decoding the dress code of Steve Jobs.
Okay.
And at the same time, I also found you in LinkedIn, and you've been talking about ABCD of the corporate presence.
Yeah.
So from what I read, all right, and also how I summarize is actually it's all about perception management, and this perception management is actually beyond what we wear.
Yeah.
Is more on how we carry ourselves and how we communicate, etc. So I thought you are just a right guest for us today.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Thanks.
So now let's go into the topic today. We talk about leadership presence. We all know by English itself, leadership presence, but maybe go through with us, what is this component of element of this leadership presence?
Okay. Right. So I think a lot of people think that leadership presence is really just about like how you look. Right. But it's truly more than that. So how I usually bring my clients through the journey for, to enhance their leadership presence is that we look through it from the lens of 4 pillars. So it's easy abbreviated as ABCDs, like what you mentioned just now, where you start with, the appearance of you, which means that you need to look the part. And then the behavior side, which means you need to have charisma when you walk into the room, right? Because essentially as a leader, you're there to influence, you're there to impact the organization, right? And then it follows through with C, which is communication. That's where, you need to speak with conviction, right? You need to have that eloquency of speaking so that people buy into the idea that you're trying to share. And then the last thing is D, which is digital presence, which means not just offline, but how you are online also does matter, because you are truly the ambassador of the organization.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, especially in this social media world.
Correct. Yeah. And I think especially right now, if you think about it, your digital presence sometimes is your first impression. It's the first time people see you, actually.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Because when you look at, Ranukka in LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So
it's our first time meeting today.
Yes,
right?
yes. Correct. Yeah. Okay. So the ABCD, definitely we are going deep into that, right? So, but actually when you talk about ABCD, you're talking about behavior and communications, right? So, what kind of leaders that really impress me is actually the composure part, how they carry themselves, like how the individual able to handle the tough tough and crisis gracefully, calmly, professionally. This is really impressed me.
Yes.
So this is perhaps for me, this is called the quality of the leadership presence. So Ranukka, talking about ABCD, right? Do you have any particular public figure that you think that he or she meeting your ABCD element, and what made that person outstanding?
Okay, so this is going to be really unconventional, but I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedies and also late night shows. And I find Conan O'Brien someone that truly embodies the ABCDs for me. Because maybe a lot of people don't realize this, but he's actually a really smart guy. And I think it takes intelligence to be funny, right? In a very deep level. And I think that's what really differentiates him with the other late night show hosts. Yeah. Like, do you watch Conan O'Brien?
I watch via social media. I don't stay back and watch or maybe spend time in watching him.
Yeah. So I think in terms of his appearance, you can already differentiate him from the other late night hosts. I think he's really tall. His looks, his hairstyle, whatever, right? Like it really does make him very different, right? In that way. But in terms of his the way how he carries himself and the way how he communicates, there is a sense of balance between humor as well as in-depth conversations, which really makes him very different. And I do see that guests do appreciate him in that sense because he doesn't just like offer gossip or like slapstick comedy. There is some depth to it, and I think that's really what makes him so different.
So maybe allow me to say that, let's say for example, when it comes to ABCD, right, perhaps you're going to continue with until Z maybe. To me, I think intelligence helps as well. So why I say so is let's say talking about among the world leaders, right? I really admire the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. Not only in terms of his intelligence, right, but if you watch his public speeches, right, the tone, the voice, the body language, and the emotion itself that in his speech is so impactful. And he would take his time to articulate his words calmly and yet so effectively.
So he believes what he says.
Correct. So it's a kind of combination of your ABCD you mentioned here. Now we talk about world leaders a lot, world public figures. Come back to Malaysia. Okay. Now you do a lot of corporate training and also individual coaching as well for our Malaysian talent, right? I just would like to hear from you. Is there any specific strength or area improvement among our Malaysian talent?
I used to be in corporate for a decade before I started my own consultancy firm, right? And back then, whenever there's any summits that we have to go for, where it's like maybe Asia Pacific, and when I attend it, right, you can almost always know who is from Malaysia.
It's a good or bad one.
Well, you can look at it both ways, and you can tell that like some countries in particular, right, they are so put together. Right. I think the positive adjective that I could use for Malaysian my Malaysian delegates, right, are probably they look really approachable, I suppose. They look really down to earth, right? Those are really nice things to say, I guess. But I would say in terms of the presence, right, it's not really there yet. And I think it has a lot to do with like perhaps the cultivation of this sort of habits, right, from young, right? It's not really ingrained in us that much, right? Especially right now with Gen Z's, appreciating individualism, right? It's even, it becomes even more sparse when it comes to like corporate presence.
Individualism is, I think, is a global issue, right? But we talk about Malaysian, so I do agree. When I was in a regional role, so I travel a lot, and I think I do agree with you. The moment you see the group, you roughly know that this is Malaysians, or this is this nationality, etc. Because the way how we carry ourselves, the way we are so approachable, then that's why it's so much thing that we need to do. But however, I also understand in terms of a very casual and more friendly business world in Malaysia, especially under the hot weather, perhaps this is also one of the reasons why we are so approachable and down to earth in a way. But definitely there's a lot of opportunities for us, right?
Yeah.
That's just the reason why I think it's good that it's a good timing for us to have this kind of conversation. Another reason is because Ranukka, I got some feedback and from the some of the business leaders and also business counterparts is actually there are some universities that having their own headache because in creating awareness and urging the students not to wear sandals and shorts to school.
Oh, okay.
What's your view and any comment on this?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I do believe that yes, maybe it's really hot in our country, and therefore a lot of people might use this sort of excuse, right, like to dress so way down. But think of it this way, right? You're going to uni. This is a place where you're getting your education. There needs to be a sense of respect, how you dress to that establishment, right? And I always tell my clients, right, it is not an either or situation. It's not like you if you want to be professional, then you have to forego comfort. Both can coexist, right? Like, so if it's really about the heat, there's a lot of materials right now that are linen. It's very breathable, right? And some people tell me like, I don't like to wear heels or like, covered shoes when I go to school because it's uncomfortable. Gosh, there's so many brands out there, right? Like, so I don't see that as like truly an excuse for them to dress down, because I think, right, when you dress up, it's also a reflection of you, and it's also the sense of whether you respect this enough, right, to show up for it, right? So
that's again, just now we talk about perception management, have to start since young.
Correct.
Because in university it's a time for for us to learn, for us to pick up certain knowledge, including this piece of knowledge as well. Now, because I think I also read somewhere that it's partly also because of a culture. We are the generation where we come from educated by the generation where go through the hardship. Some of them, our great grandparents migrated. They work on the odd jobs, etc. So they work so hard. They don't really emphasize so much on
frugal
presence. So but I think as the world is evolving so much, definitely we need to do something about us.
Correct.
Right? It's also part of self-development as well. Now, again, it ties to another questions, because these days also talking about digital world, it's talking about the hybrid working environment. Right. Again, it's just another reasons and excuse that for me not to focus too much on my presence.
Gosh, I don't know whether I will be like offending anyone by saying this, right? But it's been 4 years since the pandemic, but I still don't get why some people still turn off their videos when they're having a video meeting.
Camera shy.
Or, like I don't want to maybe take the time to like maybe present myself differently. So I rather just turn my videos off, right?
Okay.
And to that, right, I want to just say that whether you're working remotely or whether you're in person in a meeting, right, the concept is still the same. You have to behave as if you are there physically. So that really even includes, right, your appearance, right? Really, I don't think it's an excuse for you to wear like your house t-shirt or pajamas, right? And have a really unsightly background. I think we've come a long way, and I think you can already improve those sort of things. But more than that, right, I want to also just highlight this another interesting thing, which is about like when you're having conversations in a video call, a lot of us, right, if it's not our turn to speak, we just mute ourselves, right? But in real life, right, can you mute yourself? You can't, right? So then it kind of like disrupts the harmony of conversations there, and that could also reduce the chances of you building rapport in that conversation.
Okay.
So there are lots of elements in a hybrid working space, right, that you really need to take into consideration, because you don't have that element of body language or that physical meetup, right, to build that rapport. So you've got to rely on all these little things actually.
So this is all talk about visibility as well. So I like how you put in. So I can read the ABCD in what you mentioned about in terms of the hybrid working environment. Turning on the camera is not so much on just the appearance itself. It's also reflect the behavior. muting your mic is also part of the communications where
Yeah.
you want to be more interactive and participate
Precisely.
in the conversation.
Yeah.
And again, it comes with the D, which is the digital presence.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think that's some of the key aspects that we really need to take note when it comes to hybrid working environment. We still can have our presence for
Yeah.
sure, right? And now just want to talk about personal branding and the visibility. You been doing one-to-one coaching as well, even
Yes.
for the corporate, right?
Right.
So, but in today's world, right, Ranukka, visibility somehow is everything.
Yeah.
With the selfie, with the social media, of course, within the professional social network as well, right? Maybe can we discuss about pro and cons and overemphasizing
Right.
of your presence, not only in social media world, is actually in our day-to-day world as well.
Right. I would say that the cons of it, right? Maybe let's start with the cons, right? Is that especially if this is not truly your personality. Let's say you are not someone that enjoys the limelight, yet you're pushing yourself, ceaselessly, right? To really be out there, right? Sorry, out there. I think that, eventually you will come to a stage where you will be burnt out from this. Yeah, you will get really tired. And, some people even have a sense of questioning, who exactly am I, right? So,
wow.
yeah. So I think that boils down to the fundamentals of what people understand about standing out, right? Is it truly putting yourself out there all day, every day, right? Or is it being more strategic about it, right? So I think this is a question everyone needs to ask themselves about, right? And I think it's also about the fact that whether is it necessary at this point for your job to be
visible, Yeah.
right? And what does visibility really mean? Is it about like singing your praises of success? Because that's what I noticed about LinkedIn right now. And I know some people talk about like toxic positivity, right? Like everyone seems to be celebrating something.
Precisely.
Right?
That's the most likable content.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you achieved this and all that, right? But I think, right, when you oversaturate a platform, right, with all these things, it actually does have a more negative impact to it, which is why I do advocate, right, that on social media or in your branding, you want to be vulnerable, right? Vulnerability does make you more relatable. So instead of just really sharing about like, oh, you know what, I achieved this and whatnot, right? Just sharing your successes. Also, be vulnerable about your failures, right? But I digress on that, right? Yeah, I just say that I just think that, in terms of visibility, it's really not what you think. It's more than that. Yeah.
Because in today's world, people want to look good, want to have depends how many likes you have, in order
the
for
vanity
you
metrics,
to be,
right?
Precisely, right? The indicator, the metrics itself. At the same time, maybe people also worried about being judged in negative way. So that's why always showcase the best in you. But I think that's more on the social world. But in day to day, people might see you differently. You are so great and so likable in social media world, but when I see you in person, perhaps it's
correct. You've leveled up the expectations so much,
too
right?
high, right?
Yeah, so high, and it's like you are driving the inconsistency of your online and offline brand way more, right? It's such a huge gap that you might not be able to, you're not able to live up to your online presence.
So I think that's also thanks for this, because in fact I wanted to ask you about some of the common mistakes that we see among our professionals in order to enhance their presence, right? In the business world or in the digital world today.
Right. I would say the two biggest mistakes that I noticed, right, is this, right? The first one being that they imitate more than they emulate. So I would say that maybe if they are in an organization and they notice like, oh my God, my boss is amazing, I want to be just like him.
Okay.
And then they go into a journey of imitating this person. Yeah. So I've even seen like examples of like this scenario. I heard a friend of mine sharing that she had a staff that imitated her so much that even when she was presenting, she was saying the exact same jokes. That to that level, right? Yeah. So I think imitation, even though it's the best form of flattery, it's very unsustainable.
Can be exhausting, right?
Very exhausting. It's not you, right?
Yes.
So the key is you want to emulate, not imitate. So if you really like someone in your organization, instead of going bulat, right, everything the same, find out what are some key traits that you do admire about this person, and reference that. instead of going full out 100%.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste, like even clothing also the same. Oh my god,
really?
jokes also the same. I'm like mind blown, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first mistake I noticed. The second one is I see a lot of professionals, right, overemphasizing on maybe only one pillar of the ABCDs. So you do see some of them, right, maybe emphasizing a lot on the appearance portion, which means they look the part, they look fantastic, they look great, but zero charisma, can't speak, zero digital presence, right? Or another very common thing I see on LinkedIn is amazing digital presence.
Amazing. Yeah.
Zero everywhere.
Oh.
So I think that overemphasis is really something that I notice as a mistake, because I feel that people's understanding and definition of branding is incorrect, right? They don't realize that it is made of all these different components. They think it's just one part of it, and they focus so much on that. Yeah.
That's make me recall I think Adam Grant did mention about the difference between the idea promotion and self-promotion, because if you focus too much on self-promotion, like in appearance and also your D side, then you tend to forget about that behavior and communications, where your thought process, your intelligence sometimes will inspire people more than your look. Right? Okay. So now, of course, just now you've emphasized a lot on the con sides. Of course, the pro sides is actually it can be quite encouraging lah. So as a personal branding consultant, perhaps do you have any stories to tell, like you have somehow transformed the individual successfully? Can I say that from zero to hero?
Okay. So I would say that clients that come to me all have probably, maybe some of them, they are great in one pillar, but they're lacking in others. So the individual that comes to mind, right, like I wouldn't say she's a zero to hero. I think she has already a certain level of base. And she's a senior leader in her organization. In fact, she's the top lah, okay? She's the top in that organization. But what she lacks, right, is the ability to influence and impact the people that she's leading. She, of course, number one, looks rather young. She looks young. I think in terms of like what she says, there's not much conviction to it. So that was what we realized when we did an analysis towards her brand identity, right? So upon going through the entire journey with us, right, what I realized is that it wasn't just about like her being able to present better, but you can totally see the confidence changing.
Wow, that's amazing, right?
And you know, when she told me, right, especially when she had like difficult conversations, I think it's easy when things are great lah, right? But it's tough when there's difficult conversations. She felt that, you know, when she had a difficult conversation with one of her staffs, it wasn't just only like she was able to convince the staff, but she was also able to build better rapport with that staff, right? Because she had possessed the skill of like influencing, right?
People are convinced.
Yeah, exactly. And that was really the transformation that I saw in her, that she became a more competent leader, if you may, right?
Okay.
And we helped her build her social media platform, a profile as well. In the beginning, she also told me like, don't need lah, you know, I'm going to die in this organization, I'm not leaving. I say, see, that's the misconception people have of LinkedIn, right? Like you are only there to look for a job, but that's not true.
No, it is not, definitely.
It's actually a method for you to, you know, continue that brand building journey, right? So I said, no, you have to be there so that your industry partners, people who are in this space, right, also get to know you. It is important, you know?
Especially your number one position. You also become a brand ambassador of your company as well. So talking about that, right, I still notice that there are people that not updating their profiles in LinkedIn because they have a mindset that I'm not looking for a job. But and also they don't believe in branding. So I think perhaps this is another group that I don't know whether shall we focus on, but definitely through this conversation, I hope that, you know, we are able to kind of change the perception of people about what is this presence.
You know, there's a saying in Mandarin, 后知后觉, right? Like, you know, you realize it only later, right? And that's what I feel a lot with people with LinkedIn. They realize like, oh my God, I should have done it, right? But then it's a bit too late because now you've been so aggressive in building your LinkedIn, right? That people can smell it, you know, they can tell that, oh gosh, something must be brewing. That's why you're so aggressive about it, right? So I think, you know, regardless where you are in your career right now, whether you're just starting out, you have to start already.
Yeah, definitely. And but there are also some people who say, because we come to personal branding, right? I don't care, I fake it until I make it. This is so negative to extreme. And another extreme good is actually it's me.
Oh yeah.
I don't
they
care.
like me, they like me lah. They don't like me, it's okay, right?
So I always find that it's too extreme. We just need to find the balance, because it's so-called personal growth transformation is a journey, right? If yes, you can be yourself, but we sometimes have to ask ourselves that, do you think that with this kind of presence and this kind of image will bring you to another level that you really wanted to?
Exactly.
Right. Wow. Okay. So now, you also, it's going to be endless conversation now, but I want to focus on the company side, right?
Okay.
So you also the consultant for the company in terms of the grooming their like C-level you mentioned, and also their employees as well.
Right.
So I would like to talk about the corporate culture. Now, do corporate cultures really change how we see someone as professional?
Definitely. I think, right, in Malaysia, right, like across the board with different industries, different maturity of the industry itself as well, right, it does impact, right, how the employees present themselves. And we see that very apparent with, the vast types of clients that we serve, right, which is why the definition of even the word professional, right, is very subjective. So sometimes when you tell your staffs, right, dress professionally, please, what does that truly mean?
Professional.
Right, like people, does professional mean wearing a blazer, or it's just wearing a more fitted outfit, right? Like, so it's very, I would say it's very abstract, right? And it really depends on how the company molds that culture of like, what does branding really mean here, right? So understanding like what is important in terms of like, making sure these ambassadors present themselves best is one thing. But another thing a lot of companies don't think about is really, who are you serving here? The people that you're serving also impacts how you position yourself.
When you mention people, means that the employees or the customers?
The customers.
I see.
Yeah, the
Is
stakeholders.
it B2C, B2B?
Correct, yeah.
I see.
So like example, if you are a startup, right? And generally startup culture is very t-shirt and jeans and sneakers, right? But let's say the clients that you're serving are GLCs.
Okay.
Do you really wear that, right? You don't. So I think, right, in terms of like presenting yourselves, in terms of the brand part of things, right, companies need to really streamline this more effectively, because if you are just saying things that are very vague, like dress professionally, it's really up to the interpretation of your employees. Yeah, which is why I've seen some companies now starting to say like, our dress code is flexi wear.
Flexi. So what is flexi
wear? Yeah, what is flexi wear, right? Like, so again, we have to define it. And basically, to me, flexi wear is just a really fancy way of saying smart casual, right? Yeah. But you say flexi wear, to me, pajamas is flexi wear.
Oh, for some people, it's flexi.
Yeah. Flexible.
And, yeah, precisely. I think I think it's quite a commonly asked questions these days, even during the interview or first day before that new hires coming to work. HR. So what is a dress code?
Yeah.
So flexi is I think it's maybe more. I think the more commonly used is what semi-casual,
smart casual,
right? Because they say, for example, when come to the perception management, right? You are what you dress. Unfortunately, unfortunately,
people judge a book by its cover.
Precisely, unfortunately. But then you also need to kind of adjust and cope yourself with that. And also during interview, perhaps you also may ask questions, right?
Yeah.
And also go to people's office, like to observe what kind of culture. If I dress like this,
correct,
is this relevant to the office environment?
Correct,
right?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of ways for you to find out, right, how the company portrays themselves. But you're right to mention about the interview, like what dress code is. Like I think I was sharing in the earlier part with you before we started, right? Like most, I would say 90% of my staffs are Gen Zs, and that was the first question they would ask me when I asked them, like, do you have anything to ask me? Can we wear sneakers to work? Can we wear this, right? It seems to be a really big big deal, you know.
Do you mind to share like what normally how's your response when they ask, can I wear sneakers to office?
Well, I would tell them that you can wear sneakers, but the sneakers has to be at least a bit more of a presentable one. And I have like a guideline for them as well, right? These are the things that you can wear. But most importantly for me, and this is also my company's brand, is that we are very proper in our style of dressing. We're very conservative about it. So no crop tops, you know, no mini skirts, you know, things like that. But if you want to go with like maybe a wide leg jeans and, you know, like a t-shirt with sneakers on normal office days, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. But, you know, if we are going to a client's office, obviously you've got to dress up.
But what if clients visit your office?
Very rarely, but very rarely. But then, you know, if that really happens, then, you know, they would just have to like adjust accordingly for them.
Or maybe you can tell the clients, hey, this is my company culture.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, this is our company culture. Because I do feel that, you know, a lot of employees that we hire right now, they dress code is one of the things they ask. Of course, like hybrid working. Yeah, you know, do I have to come to office all the time? Yeah. So it's a very huge deal right now. And sometimes, right, you'd be surprised, it could be even a deal breaker.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, among our Gen Z.
Times have changed.
Precisely. Now, I think that's a very interesting conversation in terms of corporate culture. But I may want to ask you one question, right, Ranukka? So this is more on maybe to help me as an interviewer, or maybe to help hiring manager or HR as well. So let's say I give you a scenario where we have shortlisted 2 candidates, either for promotion or for their key positions, right? It can be external hire or internal. Both of them are equally good in terms of the skill set, experience, etc. However, we have this commonly used word, the person is not ready. But not ready in terms of what? Because somehow we have this that I still somehow something wrong somewhere.
Got feel like that.
Okay. So we are not able to kind of put the right words correctly.
All right.
Because but maybe as a as a personal branding consultant, right?
Yeah.
Maybe will you be able to suggest some constructive keywords or to describe it so that we are more objective?
Yeah.
Because a lot of candidates will ask for feedback. Hey, why I'm not shortlisted?
Right.
I have this, all the criteria, meeting all your job requirements.
Right.
But somehow you think that I am not ready. It's so subjective, right?
Yeah.
For example, let's say you come in the element of A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
Can we can't, I mean, it's so sensitive for us to talk about appearance, because otherwise there's an element of the biases there, right?
Right.
So what's your thoughts?
Okay, so I think the first thing that is important for everyone to understand is that you need to be constructive, not subjective. So example, like let's say you're going to give like descriptions to this person, it cannot be from your point of view, right? Because it's very subjective. Like example, you're dressed too shabbily, that's your point of view, right? Like it's not really what's the reality to that person, right? So for me, what I usually would suggest is that if you look at this individual, the most jarring thing here is that this person is not suitable to be the ambassador of the organization yet. If the client sees this person at the moment and is the only person that they've experienced from this organization, it's not a good representation. That's something that you've already established internally, right? Yeah. So the next thing you want to do is to really be quantitative in terms of like these 3 different pillars. What exactly are these gaps that you're seeing in this person? And I wouldn't go there and tell this person that, hey, I think you should dress better, but rather, you know what, we're going to be sending you for some courses first to get you ready. We're not saying you're not ready, but we're going to get you ready. We want you to be ready, you know, and so we are helping you with these things. So like look at all these different pillars and assess, because the chances are, right, like I would say candidates who have come so far will not be 0 in all pillars.
Definitely. Just there's something
little
wrong
things
somewhere.
Correct,
right?
yeah. And my most common one that I see, right, with most successors, right, in succession planning, they get me to come over to assess their talents. The most common one I would say is always the B pillar. A lot of them seem to lack in charisma. Which means, right, when they come into the room, they aren't able to control the room well. They don't have that particular like unspokenness, like the very like never say anything, also look really like very like wow.
Yeah, very wow thingy, right?
Yeah,
but
many of them lack that.
I'm very interested in this B side, right?
Yeah.
There was an element or maybe the components of the B side. The behavior is behavior.
Yeah.
And just now we talk about charisma.
Yeah.
Charisma can be built.
Yeah.
How?
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about building the charisma.
All right. So I would say in behavior, there's many elements to it, right? It's basically how you behave. That's essentially it. So it covers from like things like body language, how you need to project yourself, even to the little parts of, Mifong, how you walk into the room, right? How you close the door. So it's all these little things that we capture. And then the second thing that we also teach our clients on, right, is meeting etiquette. How do you present yourself in a meeting, right? What sort of questions do you ask? How do you respond well, right? How do you summarize people's answers, So all these little things, right, are also part of the behavior element. And the last part, right, is even how you conduct yourself in meals, dining etiquette. Yeah, and I want to just preface this by saying, right, dining etiquette is not just the cutlery thing, right? I mean, we are Malaysians, right? How often do we go and eat like with 10,000 knives and forks, right? It's not really that. But honestly, how do you even order? Right? Like, what do you order from the menu if you're not the one paying? Right? Yeah.
Right.
And when you start talking about work, and of course, like for the non-Muslims, obviously wine selection, right? Do you know how to pick a good wine? Right? Yeah. All these things, right, is basically little steps to create that finesse in you.
You're right.
Yeah.
So thanks for highlighting this. So because I meet candidates quite often as well. One thing is that I love to meet candidates outside office. Say for example in a hotel lobby, hotel cafe. Because once you're more comfortable in that certain sofa, certain design, you make yourself very comfortable. When you are comfortable, that's where you are showing your true self. That's where I also try to evaluate the personality of the person. Another thing is I read somewhere, it's in China. So those bosses love to invite that candidate for the dinner.
Okay.
They normally will order the fish. It depends on. Okay, please have your meal. So they will like kind of evaluate which part of fish you have first.
Which is the correct one?
It depends on like, because if there's someone that know the best part of the fish
is the
cheap. So the typically that big boss, right? They roughly know. Oh, okay. Or they will take the best, maybe serve the boss worst or something like that. So I think that's the B part. Thanks for highlighting, because it's so subjective. It can be groomed, can be trained.
It can be trained. And I think, right, another last thing, I'm very passionate about the B pillar because I'm like, so much we can do is that I feel that you need to also start equipping yourself with like general knowledge. What are people talking about these days? Right? Because in trainings itself, right, when we do icebreaker example, like a few days ago I did a training and just ask you like, tell me one thing interesting about yourself, right? And most of these people say there's nothing interesting about me, and I feel so sad hearing that. I say cannot be. And it's not that I want you to think about something bombastic, but that's a differentiator. You've got to start having this sort of like techniques of small talk, knowing exactly what to talk about other than work. So there are ways to go about it, and with social media it's pretty easy. You can learn anything
definitely
really
can
fast.
Learn, but we have to learn it strategically. Because again, just in the early conversation we talk about, people love about the content about toxic culture, etc. Toxic bosses, etc. If we try to remove that from our learning process, by focusing on the positive side, maybe we can do better. All right. So now that's the end of our conversations, Ranukka. Definitely, we would definitely keep in touch, especially to talk about BC, D, etc. Now, fun facts, guys. This is the first time meeting Ranukka, and we just realized that we come from the same hometown.
I know, right? It's not even like just the same state; it's the same kampung. Same hometown.
What a small world. Now, what my key takeaway besides knowing Ranukka, from the same kampung, I think most important what you said, right? Leadership presence is not like the package that comes with you with the title intelligence. In fact, it can be groomed. It can be learned. But I also realize, right, Ranukka, consistency is everything.
Yes.
You can be somebody else for
Yeah.
that particular day.
Yeah.
But is that you? And you have to continue showcasing that consistently. Then
Yeah.
it's called the quality
Correct. Yeah.
presence lah. Okay.
Authenticity, right? Like, you gotta be yourself.
Well, precisely. And this is a really perfect way to wrap up our season 2. Thank you so much, Ranukka, for making this happen. I also hope that Workaround Podcast would leave the lasting quality impressions to the audience and to you as well, Ranukka.
Yeah.
All right. Till we meet again in future. And this is me, Fong. Thank you for listening and watching as well. Thank you.
Thank you.